Welcome to Real Estate Agent Superstars. I'm your host, RJ Baxter with Intercap Lending. This week I have with me Ron Thorne, who is a veteran of the industry, over 30 years in the business, and he is highly involved with the political organizations around real estate. He's a representative with NAR. He's served for many years on the different associations, and he's going to join us to talk about some of the issues that are going on right now with NAR and talk about the kinds of things that the associations do to help our industry. Thanks for joining us, Ron. How you doing today?
Well, my pleasure. Doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing pretty darn good.
Good.
Looking forward to the weekend. It's a Friday afternoon as we record this. So
that's going to be a snowy weekend, so I hope you're prepared.
Cold
and snowy. It's all good.
I don't have my snow tires yet, so hopefully it's not too bad.
I tried to get mine put on this morning, but it's all good.
Back there. Yeah. Well, anyway, thanks for joining us. You've been a big, largely involved with, I don't know if the right word is politics of real estate, but the organizations that help to lobby in Washington, D.C. and help to represent agents for a lot of years. And you're a really experienced agent. How long have you been in the business now?
Well, I started in kindergarten, so I've been in for 34 years. So
34 years. Okay. So you're 38 now.
Yeah, we won't go there.
39, something like that.
A long time.
You've been an agent for a long time. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. How did your career evolve to where you started to be involved with being a representative for CAR and NAR and all these kinds of organizations?
Well, I guess so. I've been doing real estate for a long time. I was in management for many years, and then originally at one point in time had a good sized team, and then went into management for a few different companies, and then I sort of took a semi-sabbatical for a while, about 4.5 years, to care for a family member. And then, so when I came back, I just kind of reimagined where I wanted to go with my business. So I kind of revamping that, but I also just have felt a strong need, I think, as a result of all this time, to really be able to give back to our industry. And I'm very passionate about the Realtor organization and what it means to be a Realtor from various perspectives. And so I think as a result of that, I'm able to get back. It's very time consuming to do what I'm doing, but I just feel strongly enough about how the industry has provided me and 1.5 million of my colleagues, a really good career opportunities, and I just feel the need to protect our industry. And the dual mission of the Realtor organizations is to serve the public, protecting homeowners' rights. So it's pretty much an equilibrium, protecting our industry and protecting the notion of property rights for consumers. And it's up to us to do it. I mean, NAR has been around for a long time. We basically have 3 levels of a stool of the Realtor organization, starting with the very important work that our local associations do. And then we have our state association, in our case, the Colorado Association of Realtors, and then the National Association of Realtors. So, so all 3 of those elements are involved in, if you're in real estate, basically you're in politics, because it's necessary. And I know politics doesn't have the best place in one's mindset, but that's how things get done. So on our local associations, we all have government affairs committees who play a part in keeping the members informed about what's happening in their municipalities, in their counties. They're establishing relationships with commissioners, mayors, council persons, and really looking to see what we can do to forward, again, the rights of homeowners going forward. The state does the same thing. We have relationships with all of our state legislators, and we have an extremely aggressive, and I mean aggressive in a good way, a very involved, I should say, government affairs group in the state organization, the Colorado Association of Realtors. and a whole lot of things happen on the state level in the state house. So that's a really important aspect of what we do. And for example, our CAR took a position on Proposition HH that ultimately went the way that the state and local associations had hoped it would, because a lot of people didn't really understand the intricacies of that proposition. So anyway, that's the state level. So I become more involved with the national level in a couple different ways. So I serve on the board of directors of the National Association of Realtors. Excuse me. And I'm also what's called an FPC, a federal political coordinator. So every member of Congress is connected with a Realtor member who is an FPC, federal political coordinator. So we want to be there as a resource for all of the members of Congress. Members tend to not really understand how extensive the information that NAR has, both for any member of the National Association of Realtors. But anyway, we're a bundle of resources, so we want to help out our members of Congress that we are attached with. Providing them information that's very helpful for them to have an understanding of proposed legislation. Then we also take positions on proposed legislation and on bills on either the House or the Senate. And then we also, there's housing is probably it is the largest component of our economy. So it's not just affordable housing. It's not just, codes and things like that. The tentacles are vast as to how many areas are attached to the housing industry. So NAR does a ton of research on issues that we feel are important. And so then we will meet with our legislators. We will communicate with our legislators. Hey, this is something that, perhaps from a sustainability perspective or land use perspective, that we would like you to think about looking into and perhaps consider sponsoring a bill to address this particular issue. So, the classic ones that we're involved with, and unfortunately we're involved every few years, is the NFIP National Flood Insurance Program. That subsidizes flood insurance. That's a huge thing. It's a huge thing here in Colorado. It's amazing. We don't, people tend to think of flood insurance if you live in California or Florida or the Carolinas. But no, we obviously, if you remember Lyons, Colorado, not that many years ago, that's huge. So we basically have to fight every few years to unfortunately just get that extended, and it was just recently extended in September. But we need overall revamping of that whole program, and that's what we diligently keep fighting for. It's thanks to the Realtor organization that we have a 1031 exchange that was under serious threat not too many years ago. And again, we have I'm not a lobbyist by any stretch of the imagination, but we do have lobbyists. The National Association of Realtors is the largest trade organization in the country, 1.5 million members strong. So we actually do have a lot of clout in Congress. So we are in a position to affect and to initiate and to endorse or not legislation as it pertains to property rights again, and what's best for the consumer and our industry. And we do that very diligently. So anyway, I'm talking a blue streak here, RJ. Sorry about that.
No, that's a lot of good information. How did you end up in this role with NAR? So are you a Colorado representative with NAR, or is it more like an elected position with NAR, or how did you become in this role?
So I ran for a position, what's called a state allocated position for the National Association of Realtors. So basically that consisted of all of the entire board of directors from the Colorado Association of Realtors. So you run in that position, and then if you're elected, then you serve, I believe that's a 2-year term, as a member of the board of directors for the National Association. the large boards, like in our case, Denver Metro Association of Realtors and SMEDRA, South Metro Denver Realtor Association, large associations have the ability to, within that board, their board of directors can basically select or vote on a member for the National Association of Realtors due to the fact that they are a large association. But I'm not. My primary association is Mountain Metro Association of Realtors, and we're not big enough to have that ability. So somebody like me who had desire to serve at the national level would have to be voted upon by the entire state board. So that's how that came about to be on the board of directors. And then last year, I was asked by our state president to chair the Colorado Committee of National Association of Realtor Directors. So that was a pretty cool thing to be doing at the time because a lot's been happening with NAR. And then as far as the other aspect, the FPC, the Federal Political Coordinators, those are something that you apply for, and then you're screened both on a state level, and then if you meet certain requirements to have that move forward, that ultimately then is selected by the president of the National Association of Realtors. You have to be endorsed by them. And generally, so for example, I met with the first vice president of NAR a few years ago. So I had a meeting with him, and then they move forward with your nomination or not. And then the president of the National Association of Realtors would either say yes or no. And that's kind of how that happns.
Okay.
That was a long answer to a short question. I apologize.
Yeah, but I mean that's interesting to learn about how that comes about.
So let me just say, going back to that position. So historically, every year in May, we have what used to be called mid-year. I've been going to them for many, many years, even before I was active in leadership, and that's where it's now called the NAR. I think something legislative meetings and something conference. I don't know, but everybody calls it mid-year. So that's where we have meetings on the Hill. We have a lot of meetings during that whole week, governance meetings and committee meetings with NAR committees, and I serve other ones as well. And then we arrange for Hill visits with our members of Congress. So we will have constituents of each congressional member meet with the FPC and their member of Congress or their chief of staff if they're not available. And it's a really wonderful and cool experience to be able to do that. You know, people really enjoy going to FPC and having that opportunity to, we go over some talking points with what some of the asks that we have. And they like to hear our stories of what's happening, you know, in their district from our perspective. And then they give us their perspectives on some of the things that they're working on legislatively that might have a relationship with real estate or housing.
Okay. So what are some of the biggest topics that NAR is working on right now? I know the commission lawsuit's a big one, and I want to get into that. But what kinds of other things besides that is NAR working on right now that's the most prominent things?
Well, I mean, what's been in the media lately, is that what you want to talk about now? What's happening? What's happening in the hallowed halls of NAR?
Sure. Yeah.
So anyway, so a few weeks ago we had our annual. It's called NAR Next (NXT), which is the annual conference that happens in what are we in? Winter, fall, this time of the year. And that rotates from one city to another. We were supposed to be meeting in Las Vegas, but then because of their big intercity racing event, that simply wasn't going to work because we generally have about 12,000 people that are part of that event. So it was moved to Anaheim, California, and it worked out great. So we had a lot of sessions with our new president of NAR, Tracy Casper. So a lot of briefings on that, good explanations of what's been going on. So all I can say is there's been a lot of publicity, a lot of headlines. in various sources that we as realtors tend to read, but one has to wonder, what the motives are behind some of these stories and everything, because it's not, they're not necessarily factual. I can just say that they're just not. So one of the things we had an issue internally with our past president of the National Association of Realtors, and I'll just say this because it's certainly been out there. So a huge thing going forward, and that's all been taken care of and resolved, and we're moving forward with that. And I can't speak as to the validity of a lot of that, but because we just don't know at this point. But NAR is very, very, and has been for quite some time, but now an accelerated mode of really establishing and looking at the cultural aspects of staff and leadership at the NAR level. We just, basically want to take even a more proactive stance to make sure that we're DEI to the nth degree and really mean it. We talk about this as realtors to our communities, but now it's very important that our members know that it's nothing new. But we're just making it a whole lot more open and available to everybody to understand how NAR at the highest level is working very, very hard in every aspect of equality, and to make sure that everybody feels safe and comfortable working at basically the headquarters in Chicago and the DC office. So our new president is handling that, in my opinion, very, very well. So we have that, and then we have the lawsuits. So you want me to go into that at this point? Or?
Yeah. Tell me what's going on with that. What's the latest?
So there again, so there have been a myriad of lawsuits filed, and the one that's made all the news most recently was just within the past month when a court ruled it was a lawsuit against NAR and Keller Williams, Remax, Anywhere, and Home Services of America. Anywhere owns Coldwell Banker, Sotheby's. I missed a few other ones, but anyway, they're a large entity, okay? And then Remax, of course, then Home Services of America is basically in our area best known as Berkshire Hathaway and Corcoran, Warren Buffett. So when all this was happening, Anywhere and Remax decided that they would settle with the lawyers basically representing the plaintiffs, and so they were very significant dollar amount settlements. It's not finalized yet because that still has to be approved by a court, by a judge. But they felt that that was in their best interest just to have it done and move ahead. NAR and Keller Williams and Home Services of America did not want to settle. They really feel that we are absolutely in the right. This trial that had been going on for a while, basically the jury deliberated for 2 hours after everything was presented to come up with their decision, which is a bit amazing when you consider that the amount was $1.8 million billion. Right? I'm sorry, $1.8 billion. Yeah. So for something to be that easily resolved is kind of incredulous. So anyway, and by the way, attorneys, the one attorney, I shouldn't even say the percentage, but it's a very, very, very significant percentage of the settlement that he will get. And then after this settlement was made, the very next day, that same attorney files another suit against EXP and I can't remember the other companies, but most of the other major brands. So, and then we're now seeing copycats. When lawyers who are class action specialists, kind of see the blood dripping. They start salivating and deciding, oh, well, we're going to find another group that we can round together and sue somebody because there's big bucks involved in it. So I think that's one reason that NAR chose and Keller Williams and Home Services decided not to settle, because they wanted. So I should have backed up. So that judgment now is in an appeal status, and that will most certainly be appealed. And I don't know about Home Services, but Gary Keller through Keller Williams has hired a former Solicitor General of the United States to be the lead attorney in the appeal. He's very adept at this type of a situation. NAR has done the same thing, and I'm assuming that Warren Buffett, Home Services of America, has taken a similar stance with how they're projecting their appeal process will go. So those entities, I'll speak on behalf of NAR only, are taking it very seriously. We absolutely feel that we are in the right, that we have violated absolutely no laws, and we just have to really question what the motives of those who are filing lawsuits against realtors in the realtor organization. So, I mean, if you divide the take, so to speak, 1 billion, divide that after the roughly 40% or something that the law firm gets, there's not a whole lot of money left to go to each individual member of the class action suit, right?
How many are in the class action?
I don't know that number. As soon as I said that, I feel like I should have been prepared to tell you that. I knew it at one time. I really don't remember what it is. It's like, I have T-Mobile for my carrier, and every so often I'll get a letter stating, you want to join a class action suit because T-Mobile overcharged everybody for this and that 5 years ago. And, you do the math and maybe you'll get $5 out of it, but
yeah, return this postcard and get $5.11.
Exactly.
Whatever it is. Yeah.
So we're definitely in a very strong appeal process right now. I can't speak to the new other lawsuits that have been filed. And personally, I expect there to be a myriad of other copycats, for the reasons that I just stated, doing the same thing. So anyway, that's kind of where that stands. There's also a DOJ case, Department of Justice case, that's gone back and forth. I won't go into all the mechanics; it's too boring. But basically, NAR had reached an agreement with the Department of Justice a few years ago, and all was fine and dandy. And then suddenly, the DOJ kind of reversed their stance on it and said, "Oh, wait a minute, we might want to rethink this," which is highly unusual. I mean, once they have made a decision, they traditionally, historically, have always kept their word and have abided by that. So it's a very unusual circumstance. So kind of the main crux of all these issues is the compensation model. So the lawsuits and the DOJ action, they all kind of are on the cusp of saying that, we're in violation of antitrust laws. So the lawsuits were saying in the ones that I mentioned, NAR, Keller Williams, Home Services, Anywhere, and Remax, somehow we were colluding to talk about commissions. So we had all, the heads of each of those companies had gotten together and decided, well, we're all going to charge X percent commission. Okay, so of course, you as well as anybody knows that couldn't be further from the truth. We just don't do that. And we're very, very cautious. We understand, and we've been told for I know, decades. I mean, I remember this from 30 years ago. We were always told that you don't have discussions about your commission outside of your individual branch office if you happen to work for an office. That's, because we never wanted any perception of pricing collusion going on out there. So I'd say, good realtors just simply don't do that. That's that. Commissions have always been negotiable. That was one thing that they were saying, is that the price was fixed for a commission. That's absolutely not the case. Commissions have always been negotiable. The other point was that sellers felt at the closing table that, oh, wait a minute, it says I'm paying the commission to the agent representing the buyer. I didn't know that. So I'm paying for both of these? Well, number one, no. You're paying the co-op agent X percent, and then That's the seller isn't. I'm sorry. The seller is paying X percent to their agent, and then their agent, should they choose to or not, offer a co-op compensation amount to the broker who brought the buyer. Then that's between the those two agents to do that. So the seller isn't paying the other agent. The seller is paying their own agent, not the agent who represents the buyer. It's then me as the seller's agent who is paying a compensation co-op to the agent representing the buyer.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Sort of?
Yeah.
So anyway,
totally. So then
let me just say one other thing. So in Colorado, and I can't speak for other states, but I think we were a leader in this early on in my career, where we kind of established the whole notion of buyer agency. So when I was a baby agent, yeah, that was the case. The contract didn't make that very clear, but through the state government in Colorado and then ultimately the Division of Real Estate, a long time ago, it was added to our listing agreements and our buyer agency agreements. It delineated very clearly, this is the total compensation that you will be paying your agent, Mr. and or Mrs. Seller or whoever. And out of that, my agent will be paying a co-op fee of X percent. So it's been crystal clear. So assuming that they have a written listing agreement, which you always do, it is very clearly stated in there exactly how the compensation works. So I can't speak how it is in Missouri where this case was, if they didn't have that. But, I'd say we're very fortunate in Colorado that we have had that for a very long time. And the State Division of Real Estate hasn't allowed us to practice what's called dual agency, where I, as an agent, would represent equally the buyer and the seller. They said a long time ago, no, we're not going to do that. We have agency, and then we have transaction brokerage. So all these things are very, very clear and well thought out and well laid out and well communicated to either a buyer or seller property. So as far as I'm concerned, their points of contention really are not valid in Colorado. And I don't know how many other states. I don't know what their contracts are like, but it's misguided because so in Colorado now, we have been saying this for years and we continue to. It's very important when you're representing either party. So I just went through what you need to converse with your seller about, but you also, if you're working with the buyer, you need to make it very clear that I, as a buyer agent, I'm not working for free. In Colorado, traditionally, the seller pays their agent, and then their agent turns around and offers a percentage of that to me. So I'm not working for free. It's just that the seller's agent is compensating me for my work. So that's a good thing for you, but just wanted you to know that I'm not working for free. Okay. So we have to be very clear in stating that. It's very important. And we're just pushing that word out as much as possible to agents. And we have for years. When you meet with the client, before you meet with the client, you got to have a meeting with them. You can't just be a Pop-Tart and show up at a property and not have this conversation. And now that's become more important than ever. You have to meet with them and explain how this works and how the whole procurement of compensation is rendered. So anyway, it's very important for a buyer's agent to have an agreement with their client prior to showing property. And that has been the state law for quite some time. Some agents maybe have not been as proactive in doing that, but hopefully all of our realtor members have been, and they know better. So,
yeah. So it sounds like this case is far from over because the agencies are still fighting it. The brokerages are still fighting it and appealing. Do you think this is going to change the way that the business is and the way contracts are, regardless of how this lawsuit plays out?
Okay, well, you stated it very well. It's not an immediate thing, so nothing is happening right now. But I mean, who can ever guess how a lawsuit is going to turn out or a DOJ ruling is going to turn out? But the thing that's being bandied about is um, what the plaintiffs in these cases are looking for is they think that prices have been um, artificially increased because of excessive commissions. So again, it just shows they don't really have a good understanding of how well the model works and how it's worked for a very, very long time. We are the envy of the world as far as our real estate model, how real estate is created and done and transacted in the U.S. versus pretty much any other country in the world where it's chaotic. But what ultimately they're trying to do is, or what could happen, I guess, and they would like to see that happen, is that the buyer will then have to pay their own agent a commission. So the seller won't be paying a fee that will be split in whatever fashion between two brokers, between the listing and the selling brokers, right? So I think what they would like to see is that the seller will pay their agent a commission, whatever they agree upon. And then if a buyer chooses to have representation, then the buyer will then pay their agent the percentage of the transaction. That's the concern. That's what people as agents and realtors are concerned about, because that would basically break our model, and that would not be a good thing for the consumer. So think about it for a moment. You're a lender, so if you have a buyer who qualifies for this amount of monthly payment, and suddenly they have to pay a percentage, upfront at closing, how's that going to work in many cases? Especially if you're a lower income or a first-time buyer or a member of a protected class. We're very NAR is very, very focused on equity and housing, and frankly, appraisals. There's been egregious things against minorities from the perspective of qualifying for loans with certainly not your company, not remotely, but other ones, yes. And appraisers, yes. And we know that. So now adding upon that, suddenly making it more difficult for those particular buyers. And then FHA and VA, and you correct me on this or whatnot, they don't allow, is it VA that doesn't allow their VA buyer to pay a commission, period?
I don't know the answer to that, actually, to be honest.
So they, and even Freddie and Fannie, it's the whole thing is right now would be very, very difficult for buyers to be able to pay a commission. And even if it were allowed in certain types of loans, where are they going to get the money to do that? So that's going to make it much, much more difficult for a buyer, first-time buyer, minority buyer, to be able to qualify for a loan. And then, they're kind of saying, well, so it won't matter for wealthy people because that's a non-issue for them. So, how fair is that? How equity-based is that notion? Not. And then we look at the other thing. Well, okay, I'm a buyer. I'll just go directly straight to the listing agent then, and I won't have representation. Well, I mean, suddenly it's David versus Goliath. You're up. The listing agent by law has to look out solely as a fiduciary of the seller for everything pertaining to having a transaction that is in the best interest of their seller. So now you've got somebody who just calls the listing agent and goes directly to them. Well, they have no representation. They have no negotiation ability in the process if you take out the buyer representative, the buyer agent. So that simply goes away. That would create chaos, in my opinion, if we were to do that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's going to totally mess things up as far as how we do it.
Well, and you think about it too. If let's say we have multiple offers, and let's say you get 10 offers on a listing that's a hot listing, hot area, great condition, all those things. So if I have all these people coming directly to me as a listing agent, that don't have their own representation, I mean, how are they going to be treated fairly? They're not. They
Right.
have nobody batting for them, nobody advocating for them, nobody trying to make the best deal for them. The whole thing with inspections, suddenly, I mean, the listing agent isn't going to be proactive in hiring a really great inspector and putting forth all these things. They're just going to say, no, my seller isn't going to do anything, so forget about an inspection.
Mhm.
So that's just not how the model works, and that's not a good way to go with it. So
Well, it's unintended consequences. I've heard the argument that it's supposedly good for the consumer because they're fighting back on these big commissions, but it's the unintended consequences is going to hurt the consumer. And especially, like you said, the inequity of it, the lower income people, first time home buyers, I think it's going to just increase that wealth gap between, the underserved versus the affluent.
100%. Yep. I mean, it's great for a cash buyer. They don't have to worry about those things. But still, even as a cash buyer, with what we were just talking about, with zero representation, that's not a good thing for buyers. It's not a good. Ultimately, that's not a good thing for sellers either, because our co-op system right now is, we offer a co-op in the MLS to other agents to bring their buyers in. Well, if that goes away, if that's zero that we're offering, so let's say I
Yeah.
have a listing and the folks across the street also have their home listed, and my seller wisely has said, yes, Ron, we want to pay X percentage to the agent who is bringing a buyer. We want that because we want that exposure through MLS going out there to whoever is working with buyers and is going to bring us a buyer. And then the one across the street says, no, we're not going to pay anything. Well, so is an agent. I mean,
Hmm.
an agent will have to have then a conversation with the buyer and say, hey, the folks across the street in the same house, same price as yours, aren't offering a co-op commission compensation. So that's fine. I'm going to show you the house, but you have to understand then you are going to have to be liable for paying my fee directly, as opposed to traditionally where the seller is paying
Hmm.
the agent who then compensates me. So it would be a lose-lose for the seller as well if they're not following the model that we have had very successfully for a very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. So what is NAR's involvement in this, or is there involvement by NAR, or is it more just a stance that they have, or a I don't know if you call it a policy stance or whatever? Is NAR involved with this situation?
Well, NAR is very involved with the situation. So, like I said, they're very aggressive in appealing the decision from the courts, and will continue to do so. And I think as long as we get this aired out, whether it's NAR or Keller Williams or Home Services or all three of them combined, when we have a really equitable ruling by the court who's really evaluated this from all angles, all aspects of it, I think then a precedent will be set that will make it difficult for other challengers to come around. And the same thing with the DOJ. So yeah, NAR is fighting very, very hard to protect not only its member realtors, but the public as a whole, because the way it works through our MLS systems has proven to be the most effective way of having real estate transactions. So just here
Mhm.
within the United States, it hasn't been all that long ago since New York City. They did not do, their boards did not do co-op compensation at all. So if I wanted to buy a townhome, a brownstone, or whatever in New York City, I couldn't just go hire an agent, have a conversation with them. Here's what I'm looking for. Here's my goals. Here's my objectives. And I'm pre-approved by this lender, by this great lender like RJ, and help me find a great house. Well, it didn't work that way. It would be up to me to look in the ads in the paper or online and say, oh, I kind of like that. So then I have to call that brokerage, and that agent who has the listing has to show it to me, period. And I have to work with them. and I don't like it. So then, okay, we don't have a relationship. So I find another one on my own. So I have to call that agent and set up a showing with them and see if I like it. So I have nobody working for me to help me accomplish my goals and objectives. And it was a mess for many, many years. And they finally saw the light in New York City and decided, enough. This just doesn't work. So now they have done it the way most of the rest of the company or country does it. And it's far more effective and definitely a much more win-win for the consumer, both on the seller and on the buyer's perspective. So,
Awesome.
So NAR is very active in promoting everything that they can do to fight to have justice prevail in this, and I think that will. I'm optimistic about that. The real estate media rags, kind of the National Enquirers of real estate, they like other media, and I happen to be a fan of journalism big time, but not a fan of the National Enquirer, but there are major publications that are similar to that in our industry. And like the Enquirer and other publications, they, headlines sell subscriptions to their publications. So, I think they have unduly scared a lot of agents to thinking that the sky is falling. So, we at NAR and on all three levels of realtor associations are putting out there that realtors need to understand their value and know how to articulate it. So everybody feels that that realtors are very appropriately compensated, that we work very, very hard for the commission income that we have, and that, it's a success-oriented fee in 99.9% of the case. You don't charge an upfront for the most part. So if a deal doesn't happen, we don't get paid, even though we may have spent countless hours negotiating and running around town with our clients. So the consumer has to be aware of that. So we have to really understand and articulate our value proposition, in particular now as buyer agents, so people will understand the value of what they're getting when they work with the realtor. And I will, a plug for realtor. You don't have to be a realtor to sell real estate in the state of Colorado. If you have your license, you can be a practitioner, you're a licensee. But those who believe in exactly what we've been talking about now, fighting for our industry, fighting for property rights, proposing legislation that protects and enhances the position of homeowners, then you decide then at that point you want to become a realtor. If you are not a member of the National, State, and Local Association of Realtors, you are not a realtor. We as realtors also agree to abide by a very rigid and stringent code of ethics. And if there's violations in that, there's an amazing mechanism, and it is utilized, of arbitration proceedings. And it holds us to a very, very high standard of practicing our craft. And non-realtors do not have that, obviously, as a factor in how they need to conduct their business. I'm not saying that they're unethical, but I'm just saying realtors have formally agreed by being members to abide by the code of ethics, and they believe enough in our industry and the importance of our industry in furthering homeowners' rights in our industry to become a realtor member. So that's my 30-second plug for being a realtor, but it's very important. Yeah. I'm very
passionate. Join your association if you're not listening to this, or if you're listening to this and you're not a part of your.
I can't imagine. It's kind of like NPR, and CPR, Colorado Public Radio. I know people listen to it all the time, and they love it. They love the programs on it, but they never pay to become members of it. But yet they're getting all the benefits that other people are paying for, and it's a similar type thing with Realtor membership. And I'm not blaming people, because a lot of times people either haven't been told or they haven't done their homework and understand everything in terms of the benefits that being a realtor offers. It's huge. I mean, all our members just have to go to nar.realtor and spend a few hours, and their heads will be spinning with all the things, not only that we at a national level do for them and do for members of the public, but the benefits that are available to them to help them further their business and grow and be successful in their careers is just staggering. So a lot of people just have not been exposed, I guess, to it properly, or haven't taken the time to look into it. Same thing with belonging to any company in real estate. There's a lot of great companies out there that offer just an abundance of tools and resources for their agents. And I hear all the time, oh, my company doesn't do anything for me, so I'm going to go to another company. And then they go to another company. And my company doesn't, but they have never taken the time to engage in what their company does for them. And it's the same thing with realtor organizations. I hear it all the time. I don't want to have to pay dues to CAR and NAR and DMAR or MAR or whatever, because what are they doing for me? Well, a lot, but they just don't realize it. And so, it's a two-way communication issue. Maybe we're not doing the most effective job in conveying the benefits of what we offer, or what NAR and CAR and the local associations offer their members, or the members just haven't taken the time to really dig into it a little bit and get engaged and participate. I mean, so I was on the Land Use and Sustainability Committee last year for NAR. My new appointment is I'm now on the FPC Advisory Committee. So I kind of, I don't want to say I'm in charge, because that's not it remotely, but I help coordinate our FPCs now in Colorado to make sure that they're given all the resources and everything in the toolkits to most effectively do their jobs in meeting with members of Congress. So we have all these committees, and anybody can apply to join a committee on either the national, state, or local levels. And that's how you start to really understand the power and the benefits and the resources of realtor participation at all three levels, is getting engaged, going to the events, taking the classes, and going to the websites and seeing all the resources and taking advantage and ownership of them.
Well, I can say from my own experience, I didn't understand what the realtor associations do, and I'm a lender, so it's a little bit different with as far as what they might do for the lending side, but certainly it's related to the real estate side. But I got involved with MAR on the board, and it opened my eyes to all the things that are happening that a lot of people don't see. I mean, there's just so much that even on the local level that the boards are doing. So, and that the associations are involved in. So I really appreciate you pointing that out. And that's part of why I wanted to have you on, because you have such a wealth of knowledge and experience that your perspective is very, very much valued.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
But yeah. And thank you for being on. You're a great guy, and love always talking to you, Ron. And just really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy also. So appreciate you carving out a little bit of time with us.
Well, it's my pleasure. And thank you for having me on as well. I appreciate that, and giving me an opportunity to kind of maybe give a refresher course in some way, and to give an update with what's happening. But just, anybody tuning in on this, just, they need to please understand that NAR is just going, when I was in California, and then I was in St. Louis for a leadership summit last week, and man alive, the things that our National Association is doing proactively to, on all these things that we've touched on, it's just staggering at a very, very high and very effective level. And thank you for all you do. I know you were the chair of MAR's, what do we call it? Allied Industry Affiliate. So you did an awesome job with that, and the affiliate members of our organizations on all levels. But I had to say, in particular, at the local levels, like you have been, that's such a huge component too. There again, because especially if a realtor doesn't happen to have a lot of people in their toolkit, resources, allied partners, all you have to do is to go, like in MAR's case, to the affiliate directory, and we encourage our members to utilize, or at least have conversations with the members of the affiliates, because to me that's kind of like the what we used to call the good housekeeping seal of approval. You're not going to be an affiliate member if you're not good if you're not effective and ethical in doing your business, because if you're not going to remain an affiliate very long, as you know. I mean, if complaints are given, you don't stay on as an affiliate member. So you have assurance when working with affiliate members, again, to any realtor organization, that you're dealing with really above average people and companies in terms of ethics and their skills set. So once again, thank you for really promoting that as well within the Mountain Metro Association.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thanks again, Ron. Definitely appreciate you being on. And thanks again, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much for listening. We definitely appreciate your support. And please subscribe to the show so you can get all future episodes. And if you enjoyed the show, please leave us a 5-star review as well. That's part of how the word gets out about the show. And once again, my name is RJ Baxter with Intercap Lending. You all have a great rest of your day.